The Millennium Falcon is still under repair, right? Well, I thought about the Slave One, but I really want to fly something bigger. A Star Destroyer. Now, that is big, and actually might be perfect. Let me take a quick little look here. Yeah, we have the Metal Earth Imperial Star Destroyer right here. We just have to build it. Hey everyone, and welcome to Group Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and this is my friend GB1. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but we do have to do our best around here to comply with those rules. I'm glad you like your name, and you're right. The Imperial Star Destroyer is a tricky build, with all of those unique little shapings and of course those communication towers. But don't worry, we're going to investigate this build in depth. And what better place to get started than the Workbench?
Ah, the good old Workbench. Now, where did I place that Imperial Star Destroyer? You don't just leave those anywhere. GB1, do you see it? Oh, thank you. Ah, the Metal Earth Imperial Star Destroyer. Thanks, GB1. This package is a little bit older, and if you have one at home, yours might look a little bit different. Don't worry though, the model and the instructions are exactly the same. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. On the back, we get a brief look at what our package contains and a look at our model. Looks really cool, I think, especially those two little domes at the top. Then just below that, we have some instructions on how to build our model, but don't worry about those too much. We're going to go into more detail about that during the build. On the left-hand side here, we have a QR code which we can scan to get a 360 view of our model while we're building. This is useful for adding little bits of detail onto our build. And at the very bottom here, we get a look at some other builds in the series, which we've actually built every single one of those. Groovers, let's go ahead and open up our package. We have our instructions, and we have our 2 sheets of metal. That looks really neat, especially with all that laser etching. Look at that. Alright Groovers, let's put this metal down and take a better look at our instructions. Here we go, our instructions for the Metal Earth Star Destroyer. Let's quickly go over the basics of Metal Earth models. First things first, these metal models require us to cut out our parts and then shape them using whatever we can. Once we have the parts correctly shaped, we can connect them together by bending and twisting the tabs. These are typically indicated in the instructions by circles and triangles. Personally, I try to follow the instructions first when it comes to our tabs, and when the build is complete, I'll go over and change anything that stands out. I like to make tabs as invisible as possible. Next up, drum roll please. For this build, I recommend detailed tweezers, nippers, and something to help you form some cones. I used Animate Orange's tools for coning, and they worked really great. Link in the description if you want to check out those. Now, these are just my recommendations, and you really don't need anything but tweezers and nippers to complete these builds. But of course, having the right tools for the job definitely helps. Okay, so we know what we're doing, and we got the right tools. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to look at is Step 1, Part 3. This is a dome, and a little bit tricky. Why, you ask? Well, the cuts don't really go all the way to the middle of the piece. This makes creating a unifying dome kinda hard. Don't worry though, we can do this. If you don't have the tools to help you with this step, I recommend picking a petal and shaping that one to the way you like it. Then, working off the first petal, match the seams with the second petal. Repeat this step until you have a really nicely shaped dome. Alternatively, you could just use a tool to get the right shape. Second, we have our boosters. Let's fast forward a little bit. Here we go, Step 5. And, oh man, this step is a little bit of a doozy. We have several parts to form in this step, including a big and small booster. These are best formed by using detail tweezers to slightly bend the ends of the parts towards each other in a cone shape. I find by doing multiple bends, it makes it easier to get the shape you want. If you have the tools to help you, I recommend using a bigger shape first, then moving to a smaller one as needed. By working your way down in sizes with tools, the cones are more uniform in shape, giving you a nice sharp look. Speaking of sharp looks, remember to put your seams facing the same direction when you're installing your boosters. We want to hide these seams as much as we can. Lastly, adding these details between the boosters is a little bit tricky too. You may have to bend and form the assembly while it's together to get part 17 into place. Choosing to secure one side at a time will also help you get the whole engine together. Who knew that light speed could be so time consuming? And finally, the last thing I want to touch on is pre-bending your tabs and of course attaching that detail. Like in most Star Wars models, the Star Destroyer here has layered detail. Getting the tabs into their insertion holes can be a little bit hard for a few reasons. The first thing could be that the part we bent isn't the right shape. If you bring the part over to the model and the tabs don't line up with the insertion holes, we probably have to do a little bit more bending. Another possibility is that the tabs are bent slightly off mark. Using your detail tweezers, you can push and pull the tabs in the direction needed while the part is partially installed. This method makes getting that last tab on that one tricky part a little easier, but you do run the risk of scratching the metal, so be careful. The communication towers at the top are a good example of checking your shaping and securing your tabs. This part requires us to match up all of our borders, creating a hexagon-like shape. The tabs at the bottom are bent to a 90-degree angle, but depending on the shaping, you may have to play with your tabs to get them in. If you find yourself getting a little bit frustrated, step away and then come back. I'm sure you'll be able to do it then. Okay, it looks like we're almost done, and this build's only taken 2.5 hours. Nice.
And there we have it, the Middle-earth Imperial Star Destroyer. Now for the big question. Does this model get the Groove Builder seal of approval? Ah, it does! And it gets the seal of approval because not only is this a great build for beginners, but the layered detail and laser etching detail really make this model stand out. If you're a fan of the original Star Wars and you're into metal models, you almost owe it to yourself to pick this little guy up. Sure, the communication towers could be designed a little bit better, but all in all, this is a fantastic build for your collection. And new people out there, you might struggle a little bit with this back here, but as long as you follow our tips in this video, I'm sure you'll be able to make it through. Alright everyone, that brings us to the end of our show. I had a really good time building the Star Destroyer with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Want to support the channel? Well, check out groovebuilders.ca. We got all kinds of cool models on there for you to check out, and of course at great prices. Until next time, Groove Builders, keep building.